don't have that on right now. Ooh. Okay. How's everyone doing tonight? Gotta fix that a little. There we go. I say tonight, but it's actually afternoon, really. In any case, I'm the Awkward Jam Corbin, and this is Trinity Continuum's Assassins, the beginner guide to it, at the very least. Double checking my levels here. I think I am in a really good spot at the moment. Now, if you're not familiar with Trinity Continuum Assassins, it's set in the Trinity Continuum universe. One of the main things about it is it's more spy and crime based as opposed to the more, or it's more crime and like assassin based than the core Trinity Continuum rules, which are more spy based. And I'm there's a lot more underworld stuff apparently. We'll go into it in just a sec, but started off, we're gonna just look at the credits here and thank you all the developers, editors, directors, writers, lead designers. Ian Watson, lead designer. Thank you all for making this great book possible. Now, moving on. We're looking at the table of contents right here just for a second. You can see necessary evils, tense action, connections to the continuum. These are things about assassins that we'll cover later. But a lot of it seems to be like this book actually confused me initially when I started looking at it, because I was like, assassins, why would that be any different from Trinity Core? But there is apparently a lot more to it than just what Trinity Core is about. So we'll start here with the introduction. Beautiful artwork. In any case, one of the things that kind of interests me here is that it is presented in Assassins is part of the greater continuum. It's not another world or a separate dimension or a shard of the real world. It follows the wuxia genre concept of the martial forest. It's a criminal underworld that normal people are vaguely aware about, but do not know how to access. In our reality, how much do everyday people know about the inner workings of organized crime and sell organs and etc.? So this takes place at the same time as the core rulebook. Excuse me for one sec. And so, okay, so it definitely is the same time frame. That's what I was thinking. Because whenever I saw any pictures, it seemed like modern day, and that seems to be where Assassins is heading us. It takes place at the same time, which is to say present or near future. The characters are inspired like any other Continuum characters, but their inspiration takes the form of incredible violence. Oh yeah, this is a lot of violence. I'm excited. As far as inspired characters goes, assassins are deeply steeped in the flux. It permeates their highly focused lethal abilities, which are called masteries. While talents who live in the world of daylight, which I'm guessing is daylight is the term for civilians essentially, might deal with entities from another reality or other pulp stranginess, assassins create temporal anomalies by gathering together. Oh, it creates anachronisms that appear where assassins gather. An assassin of the Society of Leonidas may slay their target with a blessed spear, then accept payment from their patron in ancient coins. This sort of interaction is far from unusual in the world of Shadow, but would seem fantastically outlandish from an external perspective. This is very John Wick, though I haven't seen John Wick, so it may be a problem for me. But in any case, that seems pretty cool. So I guess assassins being separated from the daylight isn't civilian. Daylight is in actuality like other inspired. So for instance, an assassin of Leonidas, when they meet someone from the Division 9, Division 9 might be like, why are they trading all these ancient coins to do assassinations? Like, this doesn't make sense. And it finds out it's these assassin people. Okay. So, an assassin makes her livelihood by taking the lives of others. This is to face an evil. On face an evil act, but the characters in assassin games are protagonists. The fiction of each chronicle accepts that killing and violence are part of the tapestry of the story told. To that end, assassins focus its playable characters on righting the wrongs of the world. Their targets are despots, oil barons, criminals, stuff like that. They might not be good people, but their targets are much worse. So this is the hitman stuff going down here. They never punch down. Their targets are not ordinary people scraping day by day. They hold power to put a bullet between the eyes of the world's greatest evils, and they do so with style and cold professionalism. Okay, so we got general overview of the setting now. Stepping into the Shadow, Chapter 1, we're discussing the world of assassins, its history, its presence. We discuss its societies, character creation, system and drama masteries. The killing art. Okay. Well, let's go with societies. Societies are something that any player, any GM, any player needs to know about running these types of games. Oldest profession, that of murder. World's second oldest profession. I do not see Trinity Continuum putting out a book about the first profession. No assassin is an island despite the mythos surrounding them as solo operators sharpening their blades in the dark. So they have inner workings. Societies keep their retainers on staff to administer and support their work without relying on external help. This has the added benefit of keeping each society at least a little bit independent from the service. The service. Now this means I have to go all the way back to the lexicon. Okay. That would need to bring back the Black Dog label. What's the Black Dog label, Kedem Wall? I am missing out on what language you're using here. I was just looking up the service, which is a neutral party that enforces the rules of the Shadow. The Shadow being the world of assassins, the place where chronicles take place, as well as the base of operations for all societies. Okay. And then we have the Daylight, which is anything about normal people, assassins' family, and loved ones typically live in the world of Daylight. Which is weird because it's also where you have probably psychics and aberrants and whatever. Oh, yeah. Oh, you were talking about the world's first profession there. Yes, if the world's first profession were to get a book, it would probably have to be for Black Dog, for the Black Dog company or whatever. Or whatever Onyx Path's version of that is, because I do not believe Trinity Continuum is part of that. We do have here, as I was saying before, the Daylight term is used for ordinary life, but also it's used for Trinity Continuum core characters, because this book takes place in a parallel world. And I say parallel world, they're in the same world, it's just assassins have just much cooler crap going on. They're killing people for ancient coins, apparently, or whatever their anachronisms they bring into the world are, which is pretty cool. You have the Anathema, which is an assassin who's in bad standing and violated the code. You have the Code, which is a strict set of 10 rules by which all assassins abide. I'll go over that one because that seems to be something that we'll need to know in order to play this game. Contracts the agreement to kill a target. Daughters of Jacobins, a society focused on the freedom and violent change dating back to the French Revolution. They believe all assassins should be held accountable for the outcomes of their deadly actions. Okay, so this means that seems a little bit more like they might also act as police of assassins. Krugu Vorovov. I am not good with my Russian. A mysterious cult of Russian assassins who call themselves the Thieves in Law. the thieves in law. They oversee goings on in Twilight, especially punishing transgressions against their ruling body, the Seven Princes. Okay, now I have to. Well, I guess the Seven Princes are the people who run that group. Mastery is powers that assassins have. We already did service. We already did shadow, signal. A pirate radio society run by an enigmatic host who directs the cooperation of diverse alliance of marginalized assassins. The signal focuses more on the cause than payment. Okay, so they'll probably do jobs that are more about like societal change. I like that. Society is the community of assassins. Society of Leonidas. These are the ones that take ancient coins and stuff. Date back to ancient world. They are numerous and powerful, and their practices establish many of the codes and traditions of the world of shadow. Then we have the Swarm, which is a corporate society based out of Japan. Trains assassins in mass. Okay. And then we have Twilight, the world of mundane criminal activity such as con artists, thieves, and organized crime. Okay, so people who aren't necessarily knowledgeable about the assassin world, but they've heard things. Anyway. Man, we've got a lot of these societies. But first, we need to go over the code. Where can I find the code in here? Birth of the code. Here we go. The code. First rule, do not kill your siblings in arms, so don't kill another assassin. Second, do not interfere in your siblings' conflicts. This forbids slaying one another. Assassins resolve their problems through duels. They do not interfere within a duel. Okay. Rule 3. Do not involve others in your vendettas. If you must get even, do not drag your associate assassins into it, and absolutely not drag your contacts into it. Oh, in Twilight, nor your family or friends. Okay. Respect neutral ground. Okay. There are some places that have neutral ground associated with this, like this Hotel Asilia. Contract is sacrosanct. Basically sacred. If you do not like the terms of a contract, do not accept it. You do not break a contract. Your word is binding. Do not kill in daylight. Killing someone within the sight of the general public draws too much attention. At all times, an assassin should be discerning and discreet and employ the killing art only in twilight or shadow. Okay, so corrupt CEOs and politicians will always have associations in Twilight, if nothing else, and are always valid targets. Yay. Rule the 8th. Death is only for the target. Oh, so you do not kill anyone who's not part of it. Oh, but guards that get in between you and the target are fair game. Okay. 9th rule. Aim carefully, the killing arts. Do not raise your hand against a non-combatant. Targets employ dozens of innocent people who have nothing to do with the accomplishing your task. Rule of 10. Abandon your daylight life. Okay, so this is all pretty cool stuff. This is stuff that I'm actually very much for, because this stuff means that my players... I have had a lot of players when we did a modern game that was essentially spies, or in this case it would be hitmen. Like someone would make a hitman type character and just decide to go on a killing spree. But once you have this rule set that is saying, hey, these rules for our community keep us in check, and it's like you're now no longer you're playing sociopath murder hobos, you are now playing the difference between what was it? What's the difference between a crazed gunman and an assassin? Well, one's a job and the other's mental sickness. And that's basically what this book is saying. This is saying you can be a murderer you can be an assassin without being a murderer. Okay. Now we have the three worlds here. I just want to cover this a little bit because it's weird that it says you do not kill in daylight, which doesn't make sense to me because if daylight's not a location, daylight is sort of like this sphere of work. So like if for say your target is this corrupt CEO of a business, not killing them in daylight means not killing them while their business is active. What does that mean? Um, the real world is broken down into the three components: daylight, twilight, and shadow. The world of daylight is mundane and ordinary, regular people working their jobs. They do not think of their lives or about violence. Most Trinity Continuum games take place in daylight, even if strange and extra-dimensional things happen there. Now, this is where I'm saying you could take Trinity Continuum Assassins and put it into any game world. You take an assassin and put it into Trinity Continuum Adventure, suddenly have a really excellent assassin who's trying to take out your player characters or whatever. They seem like they would work really well as antagonists if you wanted that, or like rivals, or some sort of like interaction with them, maybe even an ally. Now, talents of daylight occasionally brush against the world of twilight when their heroic exploits lead them there, but rarely ventured into shadow. If an assassin was recruited into her society, her former friends live in daylight, a dangerous prospect for most. They discourage assassins from maintaining daylight ties. It's a recipe for disaster. If an assassin insists on maintaining a connection to the world of daylight, they must keep the killer life private from the others. Okay, so Twilight's criminal organizations. So this is just saying what I was saying before. It seems like these are like the difference between a modern civilian life, having a group of people who are criminals but not in the same way as assassins. Like they're your corrupt politicians, your gang members and thieves and stuff like that. A doctor providing care and distributing medicine in open disregard for oppressive laws is also operating in Twilight. Okay, so someone who's dubiously legal. So even if the system itself is corrupt, so long as someone is going against the rules that are in place, that's considered being in Twilight. So assassins most overlap with Twilight, as opposed to being in Shadow. Okay, so Twilight people do not get invited into Shadow, or very rarely do. The realm of assassins. Shadow is not an alternate dimension or reality or a shard of the real world. It exists alongside normal day-to-day operations, but disappears beneath average scrutiny. The world of assassins stands inaccessible to the people of daylight. An ordinary salaryman cannot accidentally make a reservation at Hotel Celia, or stumble into a boardroom reserved for the daughters of Jacobins. The inspired power of assassins as a collective whole protects them. An assassin can bring someone from daylight into shadow. Such a thing is not impossible. However, this puts a cultivated secrecy of shadow at risk. So this is where it makes the shadow seem to be a different location. Also, so basically, if you're trying to kill someone, you have to get them into this sort of environment that is trope based, I guess, around the assassin. Like narratively, it's the assassin's world. So we have of course, residents of the Shadow know one another and how to locate one another through hidden facilities and headquarters. And headquarters remain secret even among assassins. If a person in daylight has heard something from Shadow, it's a form of urban legend. those who dwell in twilight know that shadow exists and is populated by extremely powerful and possibly deadly people. Okay. From the vaunted hidden bases of operations, societies influence the power structure of the world. This is your shadow government, people. Well, and that sort of matches that. For those of you who have played Mage of the Ascension, the shadow sort of works like the arcane background. People just sort of collectively ignore whatever happens in the shadow. It's the somebody else's problem field. Thank you, Onyx Path, which I'm going to assume is Ian at the moment. While we're here for a second, I will just bring up some announcements that I need to go through. There's going to be They Came from Camp Murder Lake, which is going to be scheduled for this week, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. There's also going to be a They Came from Cowboy Gulch, which is going to be Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. There's also the crowdfunding for the They Came From RPG Anthology. Currently, it's getting close to its goal of 20k. It's currently at 17. If you can do that, that would be awesome. And I'll just do the little Kickstarter thing. And let's see what else I'm missing. There's the con, which is scheduled on June 16th and 18th. There's going to be definitely some games that are going to be interesting. I'm really excited for Trinity Core game that's going to be coming up on that. I'm going to be a part of that. And then the Onyx Path game night is on the 30th, and you can get access to that through the Discord, I believe. And that seems to be it. Oh, and there's the sale for the storyteller screens on Indie Press Revolution. It's not quite Onyx Path. It's not quite as overt as when Shiwan Khan hypnotized the city into thinking the hotel monolith didn't exist, but it's along those lines. I actually know that reference. It is the Shadow movie with what's his name? God damn, that actor. Alec Baldwin. Got it. I like that. The idea is that people might know the hotel exists, they just don't feel like they want to buy a room or something. Okay. We've done that. We've done the code. We've sort of gone over the service. I'm going to skip over back to societies because we wanted to know a little bit more about the code. We have the Daughters of Jacobins, which I am probably butchering, but it appears that they are based around the French Revolution. And I'm going to skip a little bit of this. They do look kind of badass here. Let's see, their operations. They receive most contracts through service or from allies in government and corporations, though judging them in their clients is misleading. Hidden benefit. There's a hidden benefit to the agenda of the Daughters, whether by exposing evils perpetrated by their target or their allies. The Daughters have been fully aware of the importance of their contracts. Okay. Now let's see the secret history here. There's the maidens approached by Jacobins to assist with their plans. The Scottish maidens asserted for a time, assented for a time. When the Jacobins could not afford to remove political obstacles, the maidens did it for them. Some disappeared without a trace, while others were dragged, beaten, and bloodied before a crowd that were going to be executed by guillotine. So we've got a lot of that. Where are they in the modern era? Today, the Daughters of the Jacobins span the world, working with the service and other societies to enact change they seek. They pick their targets strategically to make the world a better place and to maintain the order of the world of shadow. They work to ensure their ideals live among societies and punish harshly those who seek to undermine them. That's a good overview. I'm going to skip over to the Krugovorov I am very bad with pronunciations, and I'm sorry. I'm only going to cover the today aspect of these organizations because the secret history is so long. Um, they are above the Russian mafia are the thieves in law, emperors of the criminal underworld. All the thieves and criminals of the world belong under their domain, whether they know it or not. They maintain their grip over the Russian mafia, and much of the criminal world is a loose connection of individuals who operate with near impunity in carrying out the wishes of the thieves. Okay, so today they have grown greatly. What began as a single man dirtying his hands for his lord grew into a sprawling society of every people that do what is necessary to maintain the heart of old Russia and her guiding hands. They exist on the fringes of society, faces you might think you've never seen before, but disappear before you can get a second better look. Most members of them operate independently, but at the end of the day, they know where their loyalties lie. So if you want to be a little bit more independent than other assassins, this group might be yours to use. It seems like they are heavily related to Russia, so you maybe want to have a Russian character. Ooh, the motherland here. Okay, so that's not relevant for the moment. These 7 princes are the leaders of the thieves in law. We talked about them before. Did that. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here. If you want to look it out, you can always get the book. Okay, so the signal. These guys sounded right up my alley. Tune in at the right frequency after midnight, and you'll stumble upon something interesting. Hidden among the pirate radio shows, conspiracy broadcasts, and monotonous transmission of a number of stations, a listener can catch the signal. The schedule for the signal cannot be found online, only by word of mouth, but if you turn in at the right time, you have the opportunity to take contracts that'll change the world for the better. The host, whose silky voice greets listeners to the signal, helps introduce assassins to people in need. If a community is facing oppression from powerful people who must die, the signal makes it happen. It brings people together of like-minded assassins and communities so that they can form connections. Some say that the host fosters new societies, but they don't take questions to explain their agenda. Assassins who don't fit in anywhere and those of marginalized identities find a special comfort with the signal. Okay. So it's gone digital, hundreds of shows across the globe broadcasting according to a secretive schedule. The host sends a representative to the council as if the signal were on equal footing with other societies and not a more widely diffused network. Other assassins may balk at their position, but the host spares little concern. The revolution will not be televised, and if you aren't already listening, it will be too late for you. They look very zombie-like, but that might just be that just might be how the artist did the face a little. Pharaoh's Lightkeeper was full of assassins. The signal are what it would be like if the Pharaoh's Lightkeepers were full of assassins. That's an interesting take. I've not gotten familiar. I haven't familiarized with myself with all the organizations to a full extent. I do see some crossover with a lot of different things. If I bring open the adventure book, what is it? The Phantom? Les Salons des Femmes Nouviaques are also a female grouped organization, which would make sense for daughters of Jacobins to be related to in some way. But if I remember correct, and they're also French, but I am not sure their history matches, probably. In any case, so the signal is cool. I like the signal a lot. Let's go to the Society of Leonidas, a secret society and mystery cult considered eccentric even among assassins. They have an ancient pedigree and seemingly endless resources. They train assassins from an early age for their purposes before all things, including their own lives. So the name Leonidas comes from King Leonidas of the Spartans. They're dedicated to that king, old Spartan king, trafficking with gods, slaying monsters and men, and wielding legendary weapons. At least that's in the illustrious history they claim to have. Today, the society has become one of the largest and wealthiest of the societies, and they use their influence to dictate terms in shadow as much as possible. They claim to be the most ancient society, though others predate their refounding. Their goals remain frustratingly abstract, and the mystery cult's highest initiates remain shrouded in mystery. But one thing cannot be denied: the Society of Leonidas occupies a dominant role in the shadow, dictating much of the etiquette and standards all assassins and societies serve by. Okay. Yeah, man. This one's crazy. So that would be a good one for if you're looking for a who's the big dog of this group. The future of assassins. Oh, Leonidas was in theory a group that once existed in ancient Greece, but was rebuilt in the Renaissance. There are similarities to both the Templars and Assassins from the Assassin's Creed series, as well as the fraternity from Wanted. Yeah, that I definitely got the sense of that. I still haven't seen John Wick, but I feel like John Wick is definitely represented in this. And then we've got the Swarm. The future of assassins was born roaring into the new millennium through brochures sent to the world's most powerful organizations. There is the Zumbachi group. I am definitely messing that up, but it's colloquially known as the Swarm. Take the even humblest office drone and transform them into a deadly weapon with only a short course of instruction. From the many weapons they create through the proprietary Hornet workshops, the Swarm have found assassins brimming with hidden talent. Oh, it's called the Wasp. That's awesome. Onyx Path. Zuzambachi translates to wasp. This reminds me of, was the movie called Cypher? It was the movie where the guy, Cypher was a movie about a guy who found out he started working as a corporate spy and then ended up being in this giant maze of. He was just going to these meetings and then finding out that the meetings involved programming him to be an assassin or something. It was crazy stuff. Good one to check out if you're interested in the Swarm, I think, maybe. So we've got the secret history of here. Today, the Swarm have become an international presence with offices and contracts across the globe. Still bound to the Mzagi by history, the Swarm has become a dominant partner in their relationship as state crackdowns saw Azamgagi members shrink during the early 2000s. Hornet workshops train criminals, special forces, and corporate spies across the globe, while the Swarm uses the workshops to find assassins with the most promise to recruit into their organization. Other societies fear the Swarm for their surging influence since the 21st century started, and for their disdain for the etiquette that governs the shadow. They definitely seem to be the more white collar of the organizations. And that, man, these little symbols, love it. Love these little symbols. Oh, we've got some minor societies here too. Mountain families. They kill people on Appalachian killers for hire. The Rush, which are a small group of jet-setting adrenaline seekers. That feels like, what was it? 20, not 21. There was a movie about a group of assassins who were like all crazy. I saw the sequel, but I never saw the original. Smoking Aces, that's it. The Honorable Order of Glassblowers. That is a very interesting group to have. We have the Council. We have a nice picture of the Council here. Okay, so we've gone over the main aspects of the lore, I feel. The societies. Character creation I'm going to be going over next week if you're interested in that. It's going to be the same bat time, same bat place at 5 o'clock. Let's look at the systems. We do have dramatic editing here, which is what has been used in Trinity Continuum a lot, and I really like that feature. Man. In Assassins, we can surprise the audience by making liberal use of flashbacks. So this is a very leverage-like aspect. In a game, however, flashbacks can be used to keep the actions flowing and maintain a fast-paced story. If in the process of preparing for the job you find the players becoming too invested in making their plan perfect by accounting for every possible risk, remind them that flashbacks and other versions of dramatic editing exist for this reason. That's great, because you can just be like, hey, we didn't account for the fact that there was a firewall on this safe. How are we going to get past it? And it's like, well, we prepared for it earlier. And we're going off the rails on a crazy train. Going off the rails. Plans are not meant to go off without a hitch, even ones revealed in flashbacks. Hardly make for a thrilling story. With every flashback a player commits to, there appears a new opportunity to discover how their master plan will unravel. When a player proposes any dramatic edit, but especially a flashback, look for any loose threads or potential consequences that could arise as a result of the new events. Keep an eye toward opportunities for your players to prove how determined, skilled, and deadly their characters are. Okay. Flashbacks and costs. There are three levels of flashback. Each one has an associated inspiration and momentum cost related to the time and effort a character would have needed to expend a flashback, as well as advantages the flashback would have granted them. 0-point flashbacks require little to no effort or resource for the character. These dramatic edits are so within the character's realm of competency as to not warrant a flashback at all. They require no cost. Really, this is not a dramatic editing so much as accounting for a character's general expertise. So consider the expression appropriate gear retroactively without feeling the need to push the issue. So if your player's like, I'm a burglar, I'd have lockpicks, that makes sense. A simple setup with a single advantage requires 1 inspiration or 2 momentum. They only require a small amount of time and a few extra resources, and typically grant the character a piece of useful equipment, some generally useful information, or change a small element of the scene. Not giving you the example, but basically you're told, hey, this encryption key, you need a password. Now you have a flashback to where you got the password from a security guard. Complicated setup resulting in either multiple advantages or a single significant one requires spending 2 inspiration or 4 momentum. These flashbacks demand considerable time and resources from the character in exchange for the ability to bypass a difficult challenge or change a major element of the scene. Bringing automated security down. There's some well-armored people there. You could take them, however, that takes up precious time and resources. So Jessica wonders out loud if there isn't another way without trying to cram everyone into a heating duct. Oh man, that would be an interesting way to edit reality. Is suddenly all the air vents are big enough for people to go through. Um, so getting blueprints and stuff like that. That's what she did with her setup. Setup so intricate, so unlikely, so fortuitous for a character that it begins to stretch the table's suspension of disbelief, requires spending 3 inspiration or 6 momentum or even more. These are miracles of fortune, serendipity, and story-swerving dramatic turns. This is the type of thing where it's like, oh, the power just happened to go out at this exact moment. There's some alternatives for doing flashbacks. Assassin system terms. Okay, creating set piece sequences. They kill a lot of people. You need to make it interesting. An important part of the story is the showdowns between the assassin and the team of enemies you know they'll move down through, or the finale between the assassin and their target. Sometimes they'll have an extremely dangerous bodyguard, a mob of minor characters with cheap guns. But that's the loud approach, and it's a fun one. Some assassins prefer silent and subtle route, observing their target and watching the environment closely to identify opportunities to strike a single decisive blow. So this is where we have these system terms for black box, the closed set of fields describing the overall area in which the assassination will occur, with the target unaware at the start. More generally, a holistic system term for the entire assassination session. An opportunity is an advantage or a unique method for the assassin to kill their target. This is all very Hitman to me. I love Hitman, the video game's game design philosophy, and this is all resonating with me. Like, an opportunity might be that the guy goes for a cigarette break on the balcony, and it's a perfect place to just push the guy over the balcony ledge. Or the person is in a steam room, and if you lock the steam room, they'll eventually die. No one will walk by, and they'll die from being overheated. So we have points of egress, which is the tracks that allow a player character to undergo a session story, culminating in an opportunity. Session story is a vignette or a side story adjacent to the overall timeline of the target, which begins with a point of ingress and ends in an opportunity. Ticks are an increment of time on a timeline. Every 5 ticks moves the overall mission ahead in some specific way. Okay, so you have a timeline of events and you tick them off as you go through. Timeline, the sequence of events and pattern of life that the target engages in, which all session stories intersect with at various points. Okay. So here's an example of the timeline. At 0 ticks, the target awakes at their secure accommodation, surrounded by guards. They're throwing on some basic clothing. At 5 ticks, this target, and this is just an example, mind you. He spends some time with his girlfriend picking at his eggs, and then shoos her out of the opulent house. Decides to get a few drives in. So the fields would be the open air dining court and the adjacent golf range. Okay, so this is what I get. You have, at every tick, you have fields which are basically components of the shadow. Kind of. So fields are where you can take, basically take your target and assassinate them. So it's when, like, if they're at a villa if they're at their villa and in the courtyard, that's a field in the shadow that you can fight them. But if they're out on the public street, that's in daylight. That is not a field that they can use, unless they go down an alley, which would be a field. Okay, this makes sense. I mean, I am making some leaps of logic, and if you don't like those leaps of logic, you can use the what you think is right for you and your group, because this is all about you and your group having a good time with this system. And honestly, I can see having a great time with this system. I might suggest it to my friends for when we play our next game. If we're all supervillains or something, or evil, because those 8 core rules make so much sense. There's this dine-in restaurant. There's returning to the villa. Okay. Each timeline starts with the reveal or the assassin's recognition of the basic scope of their opportunity. The player prompts a reveal action with a successful skill roll. So hacking cameras, doing some surveillance, using a basic sky. Hacking the camera system reveals the target's paramour, likes to summon staff to her side at the merest whim, and barely addresses them, meaning a basic disguise would fool her completely. Okay. Targets come in 2 varieties for the storyteller to insert into a game: dwellers, who stick to a single fortified location, and roamers, who cross multiple fields. Establishing their location is a principal goal for the prospective assassins. Okay. The opportunity. Any black box should contain a number of opportunities, generally at least 3 per mission, or 1 per tick sequence. Each comprised of discrete actions generated by a successful skill roll, representing success at maneuvering into position. Okay. So, for an example, there's a chef. Everyone's got to eat. Getting into the kitchen allows a prospective assassin to determine when a meal's coming in or who's ordered what, which means a quick hit of fast-acting poison will act to eliminate Dominic, but leaves open the possibility of collateral damage if his girlfriend decides to steal a fried potato wedge from his plate. So you'd have these potential roles for setting that up. Setting up these opportunities. We have retroactive reveals. Dramatic editing can be used to justify nearly any opportunity being created. The story guide should be as liberal as possible when allowing edits in this manner, even to the point of allowing a player character to seize control of an opportunity. For example, realizing the chef would be an easy kill, a player may spend 2 inspirations to edit their character in as the new food supplier for the kitchen, which would give them a reason for being there. Edits shouldn't bypass the session story, but they can set up a better way for the character to interact with the position of strength and skill. And then you have branching opportunities, which seem to be opportunities that have multiple outcomes you could go down. We have going loud, which is... okay, there's the marked for death condition, which is on 107. Any attacks, so you identified and aligned an opportunity for assassination during the session, limiting the target and all viable bystanders who would be collateral damage gain this condition upon resolution of the session story. Any attacks upon the target that align with the opportunity bypass and nullify whatever defense scale the target has. Okay, so they lose their defense. Additionally, each realized opportunity that's capable of stacking increases the assassin's scale by 1. Okay, scale is something I remember from one of the other games, where basically scale is like, okay, a normal person's scale is 1. If you're sort of like a superhero, your scale might be 10 or something. Scale's probably rewritten somewhere here, or is mentioned somewhere else in the core books. So killing the target, going loud, or the situation changing enough so that the original opportunity is no longer valid is how this gets resolved. So basically it flags the target and people around them as being valid to be hit. It's sort of like them being surprised, as it were. But it gives such a better benefit because it's scale. Let me see if I can find scale in here. And I've probably gone through the entire page now. Yep. Okay. Core rulebook. That definitely has scale somewhere. Scale is on 74 or 111. So we have the scale mentioned here. I'm guessing 111 is where the table is. This is in the core rulebook. Combat and scale. In addition to the enhancement bonus, characters of a higher scale rating can use their impressive power to deal additional damage. A character with a higher scale rating may purchase the inflict damage stunt an additional time for each rank they are above their opponent. Okay, so you do double damage, essentially. For example, a talented scale 1 human size with a sword can slice their way through an armored car, scale 3, but cannot slice a skyscraper in half. Okay, there we go. So back to going loud here. Nullify skippable stacking. Increases relevant scale by 1. Okay, so long as you have all these opportunities stacking, you gain more scale. So you can actually have that scale up to like 3 or 4 or something because you've been stacking opportunities. Basically, you're so good, you've made it so that you're checkmating this person. Going loud is almost always a result of marked for death condition. During the sequence in which the conflict goes loud, the antagonist can cancel out any further mark for deaths placed on them by spending source or tension 1 for 1 to reduce the rating of the condition to 0. The target of the condition then can no longer be instantly killed. Okay, so this does do the instant kill. But the narrative truth of the condition remains the same. So we have all this stuff about setting the scene. Start to build tension. Okay, so when going loud, this conflict breaks down into 2 categories, approach and escape. During the approach, the assassins fight through hordes of hired guns, deal with traps and other obstacles as they bear down on the target. During the escape, they must contend with similar issues, but to get away. You can build tension with the mood by setting the mood. Light some candles. Get some jazz going. And the more the story guide involves the table, the more engaged and excited all the players will be. Use the group suggestions to build the framing for the scene. Story guides should do their best to incorporate at least one detail from each player's suggestion. The assassins are no longer skulking about. They're here to kill. It's a showdown. Ask the character or characters in Spotlight, how do you approach the target? What are you wearing? How do you feel? Then ask the remaining players before the approach, who's the most dangerous person, or what is the most dangerous thing that the target employs? What could possibly go wrong? Ask these questions before the escape. What methods does the target have to stop the assassin, and what hidden exits might there be? Oh, and we have even mechanics for boss fights. And definitely, this here is definitely not John Wick. TM. Some bosses have an impenetrable home base during the approach if the characters fail to buy off the approach field complication. Um, they may trigger a trap, change a detail of the approach, or introduce a new problem. Legions of Subordinates, the final form. This character becomes more powerful after having been defeated once. The story guide determines whether they consider the initial defeat part of the approach or the escape, but regardless, when the character fails to buy off either field condition, this triggers the antagonist's resurgence into the scene. Immediately refresh all assassin powers the antagonist may have. Restore any spent tension, and add 1 die to all the antagonist pools. The boss heals back up to half health, but once they are taken out this time, that concludes the encounter. So basically, what we're saying here is if you are setting up a boss fight, the players kill the target, but you don't want the target to die. This effect basically makes the target more crazy, more difficult for them to face, but because they got the assassination hit on, the target is now at half health. So this makes sense as if you want them to have a boss fight. Then we have fields. We talked about these fields before, I guess. Well, we talked about something very similar to this. They should be linked in a chain, meaning that it's possible to go from field A to D without passing through B and C. However, story guides should provide a number of shortcuts between fields, rewarding assassins. So this is sort of mapping out your territory by saying, okay, hey, there's a party. There's a crowded field. There are a lot of people around. If not bought off on the movement action, the character risks getting lost, then turned around and pushed into another range band rather than getting to the desired destination. You have dark, you have dizzying heights. Man, I could not deal with that. Fortified, speeding, tight, the approach. The approach and the escape are both fields. Okay, that makes sense. Because as we said before, you have to buy off them. I'm trying to think, where are we buying these conditions off? Excuse me. Oh, some of the field conditions also apply to adventure. That's good. We've got some assassin's power here. We have some antagonists. Oh, they have daylight antagonists who are just kind of make things more complicated. The dupe, the executive assistant, the old lady with a gun? What? She lived in the neighborhood for 60 years and there's nothing about it that she doesn't know. No one whose name she hasn't known since the day they were born. She's deeply and violently dislikes the fact that assassins keep showing up in her shop and disturbing the peace. Under the blanket, she has a firearm. Don't let her peaceful expression and gentle smile fool you. Man, you have the lookout, you have the party goer, you have the rent-a-cop. Little old lady with a gun. God. We've got bodyguards, bureaucrats, gadgeteers, getaway drivers, info brokers, nameless assassins, a neighborhood tough, porter. Oh, these are people who provide support. Okay. Now we have the antagonists. Oh, the chameleon. She can disguise herself and is a master of disguise. She's cut all ties. That's pretty cool. You have a contract killer. These are all pretty cool characters, and they have those assassin powers too. Some of them. This one has flawless disguise. This one is interesting. Contract killer has additional stuff in it for unique powers. Some of these people get unique powers. That's good. Lifer, an old school contract killer's been in the business longer than most people who hired her. She's taken assignments not only from their parents, but their grandparents. Okay. Poisoner. The perpetual problem. No one understands how he keeps coming back, no matter how many times someone thinks he's dead. He keeps returning. While no one knows where Chuck came from exactly, there are theories. He was grown in a lab, crafted from DNA stolen from an assassin. Okay, so he's always just a pain in the butt. Then we have the professional, revenge seeker, rogue agent, the corrupt cop, up and coming assassin. Okay, so we got pretty good stuff here. And it's hitting 6 o'clock. I need to cover the masteries probably a little bit. These are special abilities that assassins get. Let's see some examples. Do we have some examples of one? A good hat. During the approach or escape, you may spend inspiration. All characters who perceive you only remember a specific detail of your choice, some signature item or accessory. If an effect that would reveal your identity contests this mastery, it provokes a clash of wills. Okay, so that's basically a way of making it so it's more difficult to trace you down. Best dressed. People in daylight might ignore her bloody clothes and disheveled look, but those in the shadow know what being on the hunt looks like, and some will use it as an opportunity, looking for your best spite whatever violent acts you may have engaged in. You always appear immaculately while on the hunt, no matter what. Evidence of violence, blood, cuts and scrapes, and bruises seem to fade away. This doesn't prevent her from feeling the negative effects of her conditions, but no one knows what she's suffering. In fact, those wounds only make her more determined. Okay, so you basically don't, like, you're being wounded is only a minor inconvenience and people won't notice or call it out. Cersei, you gain some bonuses for talking to people. Cut ties. Oh, you can effectively hide your bonds from anyone attempting to discern them. Okay, that's a good one, making sure that your people in daylight are protected if you're still connected to them. Cut the cameras. Okay, so these are all sort of their abilities with inspiration. Sometimes inspiration changes things. Oh, I didn't even go over the types of characters, didn't I? Well, we'll be going over that when we do character creation next week. Thank you all for sticking around with me for this long. I hope you all have a good night. Remember, there's going to be the Onyx Path Con that's coming up in 2 weeks now. It's going to be coming up on June 16th to the 18th, which is going to be awesome. There's a Start Playing account for signing up for events. I'll be there. I'll be running some shows. Let's double check here if there's anything in the TTRPG section for people who are for where we can raid, for whom we can raid. Oh, and I don't forget there is the adventure actual play, which is going to be in an hour. Trinity Continuum Adventure should be at 7 o'clock today, if I am correct. And I wish I could be passing it off to them, but sadly, I have to get food now. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a good one, and let's bring in that Onyx Path music that is just so lovely.